Heaven Official's Blessing. Chapter 219. Audio source: WuShoWorldAudiobook.com. 100 years of pain, 1,000 years of suffering. Head priest didn't answer him. He was now completely sunken into the indispensable terror that scene still brought him. Those faces hadn't seen light in a long time, he said. So even the moonlight of the night was painful to them. When I suddenly removed the mask, it was as if they were shocked, and they squinted their eyes, their voices stopping. But after a moment, when they saw it was me, they began to scream my name. I was completely stunned. I've said earlier that I've never seen anything more horrific than millions of people falling from the skies and burn alive in a sea of fire. But the scene before my eyes then was more horrifying than that by a millionfold. My hand that was holding the mask was shaking nonstop. And if it wasn't for my entire person already petrified and frozen still, that mask would have probably dropped to the ground and wake His Highness. Meanwhile, those three faces seemed to be anxious to tell me something. The opening and closing of their mouths became even more erratic, but still they suppressed their voices, like they were afraid to wake His Highness. When I saw their appearances, I was both disgusted and scared. But I still couldn't help but be curious to find out what they wanted to tell me, so I bent down, held my breath, and leaned close to His Highness' face to listen. Coming so close, I could smell the thick stench of blood and rot that herbs couldn't conceal. I heard them say, "Quick! Run away! His Highness had gone mad." Turns out, after the other three had left, they were still worried, so they secretly returned to find His Highness. Yet unexpectedly, they just happened to run into His Highness taking a large number of people rushing towards the direction of the kiln. Only then did they find out that His Highness had never abandoned the idea of sacrificing the living. In a fit of shock and rage, they went to stop him and started a fight with His Highness. Yet unexpectedly, His Highness actually bore and killed them, and threw them into the kiln along with the other few hundreds of people. The other citizens were of course burnt to dust and ashes after being thrown in. But the three of them were cultivated, and were also murdered by His Highness. So their resentful attachment was extremely deep, and their souls actually took His body as host, growing upon His person, and nagged at Him in rage every day, hoping to prevent Him in all of His endeavors. As I listened, I felt horror and confusion, and I didn't know what to do at all. What was horrifying? I wasn't actually clear. Was this Highness scarier, or were those three things on His face? Right then, I felt a hand rest on my head. I stiffened and slowly looked up, and saw His Highness. I didn't know when he had woken. He and the three faces on his face, a total of 4 sets of eyes, were all staring at me. The expressions on those human faces became even more exaggerated. As they twisted, they tore the gashes on his face, and a lot of blood streamed down. He stared at me for a long, long time, then he sighed, "Haven't I told you not to come in here?" Suddenly, I understood all the abnormal behaviors of these past few days. When His Highness discovered his face had grown 3 such creatures, he wasn't able to accept it, and he couldn't tolerate this inhuman, demonic appearance of himself in the mirror, so he smashed all the mirrors. The bleeding was because he wanted to use a blade to slice them off. The rotting smell was because the injuries wouldn't heal, and no matter how many times he cut them, they would always grow back. Head priest covered half of his face, his pupils violently shrinking. He said, "Instantly fell to my knees at his bedside." His Highness slowly sat up on the bed and said, "Don't be afraid. They became like this because they betrayed me. As long as you don't do the same, I will still treat you as before. As long as you are my loyal servant, nothing will change." But how could I not be afraid? And how could nothing be changed? Everything had changed. His Highness was very smart. He had never had to watch people's faces, but after banishment, he had learned to observe expressions. He had guessed what I was thinking, and asked me slowly, "Are you leaving too, then?" To be honest, I didn't know. If he had only thrown the beans he spoke of into the kiln, maybe I could have pretended nothing had happened, and I did say I could have understood. But he had personally killed and thrown our bestest friends into the kiln too. We only had each other. This really was madness. Wasn't able to accept it. His Highness said to himself, "It's okay, I had expected it. No one would stay after I have become like this. I can go on my own. I understand, and now, I've always been alone. I don't need anyone." His expression suddenly turned savage, and he eyed me unblinkingly as he strangled me with one hand, repeating nonstop, "I can be on my own, all alone, 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 alone. I don't need anyone, I don't need anyone, I don't need anyone, I don't need anyone." His Highness' strength is powerful, and if he really wanted to kill me, my neck should have been snapped instantly without making a sound. But I didn't immediately die. And when he started to act up, my three friends all started screaming from his face, and, as if they've done something to him, he started yelling with an agonizing headache too, and I was also screaming. The five of us were all screaming wildly, yelling in madness, like we had all gone crazy. His Highness gripped his own head with one hand, and the other was strangling me harder. My vision was growing dark, I couldn't hold on much longer, but right then, I saw something underneath his pillow. Under his pillow was a sword. It was cushioned underneath when he slept, and it was a habit he developed after banishment. I caught hold of the hilt and pulled out the sword. The chilling light shimmered and His Highness laughed heartily, his eyes blood red, asking, "Are you going to kill me too? Come, stab me, quick. Stab me right in the heart. You can add to the count. I've got a CWHO will be the last to die. You lot owe me." Single quote, quote dot. Of course I didn't stab him. I only flashed the sword before him and cried with my everything, "Your Highness. Your Highness. Please come back. Look at yourself. Look at what you've become." Single quote, quote dot. He had smashed all the mirrors and it had been a long time since he last looked at his own reflection. The blade of that sword was sharp and bright. It reflected his appearance then, and he also saw his own face. When he saw himself in the mirror, he suddenly stopped. The strength His Highness used to strangle me did not lessen, but, after who knows how long, he looked, and suddenly, 2 lines of tears streamed from his eyes. When I saw his tears, I couldn't help but cry too. That reflection on the sword, such ugliness. Even with just a glance I found it disgusting, so why did I make him look at himself like this, to remind him that he was now such an ugly creature? I still couldn't bear it, and the sword fell from my hand, dropping to the ground. In the end, His Highness threw me away forcefully and said, "Scram." I ran away, crawling and stumbling. Having listened to this point in one go, that breath held in Xie Lian's throat finally let go. Some head priest also lowered his hands. I've run far away, and escaped the Wu Yang kingdom. And it wasn't long before the volcano of the kiln erupted once again. This time, the entire Wu Yang kingdom was completely buried, not a single soul saved. An entire country disappeared just like that. I escaped this calamity, but afterwards I have never heard any news of His Highness again. It was as if he was also buried along with the Wu Yang kingdom. I've trekked to the heavens before, and I've also cultivated on my own, so I've a small bit of achievements. I maintained the state of my body and drifted aimlessly throughout the mortal realm. I've served His Highness since I was young, and now that I didn't need to serve him any longer, I actually didn't know what to do. His Highness was gone, my 3 friends were also dead. I created 3 empty-shelled fakes, and made the fakes to speak in their voices to talk to me, and play cards sometimes. Having heard empty-shelled fakes, Xie Lian's expression grew solemn. Head priest continued. Later, my magic improved, so I also instilled the skills of my 3 friends into the fakes. Xie Lian asked softly, "Were they the other 3 head priests?" No wonder he always thought the other 3 head priests were rather strange. They never acted on their own, and they never socialized with him one-on-one either. So they were fakes, and if they left Head Priest's side they would be exposed. Head Priest replied, "It's them. So, I suppose you are also the disciple of my 3 friends. Alas, I'm not them after all, and the most skills I could instill into the fakes were only 20 or 30% of their true strengths, so not much could be taught. And those 3 fakes that had kept me company for so long had also been long destroyed by him too." After another 1 or 2 centuries, the heavenly dynasty changed, and the heavenly officials of the past were all fading away. Gradually, a new batch of heavenly officials had replaced them. However, none of that was any of my business, and I was also just living shamelessly waiting for death. Until one day, in some kingdom, a crown prince was born under the ominous star. That was you, the crown prince of Xianla Kingdom. It was here at last. The hands Xie Lian rested on his thighs clenched slightly. Head Priest sat cross-legged, and spoke, hugging his arms. I thought it was quite coincidental, very much an affinity. But in truth, by then Wu Yang had been destroyed for many, many years. Of course there'd be 1 or 2 after some hundreds of years, so it wasn't really a coincidence at all. But still, with a feeling even I didn't understand, I casually made up a name and went and became the head priest of Xianla. I knew that name was made up. Xie Lian thought. No offense to your Xianla, head priest said. But to muddle in and get the head priest position was much too easy for me. There was only one problem, and that was people always thought, without a beard one is incapable, those who were young must be inexperienced and incompetent, and would be looked down upon. If I went to the interview with my current face, I might not pass, so I changed my face a little, added some 10, 20 years, and sure enough, I muddled right in. But to be the head priest, it meant I had to speak to the heavenly officials of the heaven realm directly. Thus, I came to face with Jun Wu. Jun Wu's appearance and the highness I knew was completely different. Still, I was too familiar with him after all, so after exchanging words a few times, I've already had my suspicions. But they were still only suspicions. And even if I was suspicious, I didn't want to expose anything. He had already turned into someone else completely, and the faces on his face had also vanished. I thought the resentment of my 3 friends had dispersed, and if that was the case then there was no need to bring up any old history and break this peace. So wasn't it fine if we both pretended not to have recognized each other? If it was me, I would probably do the same, Xie Lian said. But we still couldn't pretend to the end, head priest said. Because we both saw you. Your Highness, you must have guessed by now why I had such high hopes for you. You're very much like him. So, I had hoped you would become someone or a god he had wanted to become, and do what he couldn't do. You could use your perfection to remedy our regrets. Hua Cheng, however, said flatly, "You've been mistaken from the start. They're not alike at all." Head priest gave him a look and said, "Of course you'd say they aren't similar now, but back then they were very much alike. And the bad thing was, they were too much alike." He turned to Xie Lian again. "That time with the God-pleasing ceremony, you saved a small child fallen from the city wall, and I wasn't too pleased. It wasn't just because that incident stopped the ceremony, it was more so because that incident was too conspicuous. You had aroused Jun Wu's attention. Jun Wu started talking to me about you. He was very interested in you, and every time we spoke of you, I could vaguely tell there was something not right. But I could tell he genuinely likes you. It was the delight of having found a suitable good sprout, and was thinking of appointing you up. Only, every time I'd use all sorts of reasons to urge him not to do so." Xie Lian also didn't want to believe that Jun Wu's attitude towards him was all fake, but when he heard head priest say so, his feelings became complicated, hard to describe. "The turning point was Yin Yen Bridge," head priest said. Having heard those 3 words, Xie Lian snapped back to attention. Head priest said, "Do you still remember that ghost at Yin Yen Bridge?" Xie Lian replied quietly, That was my chance at ascension. Of course I remember. I already sensed something was wrong when you ran into that ghost, head priest said. This ghost haunted upon the broken bridge in the barren wild, was donned in broken armors, the flames of karma beneath its feet, and blood and sharp weapons covered its body, leaving footprints of blood and flames behind with every step. And those 3 questions it asked you, all of that made me very concerned, worried even, and I couldn't quite put my fingers on what was wrong. And after defeating that ghost at the bridge, you ascended so quickly, I didn't have the chance to figure things out. Thankfully, after you ascended, Jun Woo's attitude towards you was good as always, granting you favors, thinking very highly of you, like nothing had changed, and so I also told myself not to think too much. And then, it was the great drought of Xianle, the rebellion of Yang, and the appearance of that creature, Bai Wuxiang. Xie Lian held his breath and was hanging on to every word. Head priest said, I've said so before, but at first I didn't know what that creature was at all. And even if the human face plague had manifested, I only had suspicions, since parasitic resentful spirits wasn't anything new, it's just never so widely spread before. Plus, I was fairly resentful towards fate. In the beginning, I thought Bai Wuxiang was born of nature, that it was the heavens that wanted to punish you. But as you came more and more in contact with that creature, and the human face plague was growing more and more out of control, plus many other things on top of that, all of it was forcing me to think in the worst case scenario. Many other things? Xie Lian asked. What do you mean? Such as? That family of 3 who fell to their deaths at the gates of the royal capital of Xianle, head priest replied. Xie Lian stopped breathing. That was. Afterwards, I examined the corpses of those 3 people, head priest said. And I discovered they weren't human at all, but 3 empty shells. Xie Lian exclaimed. But empty shells are hollow, they don't have organs, and they can't bleed? There wasn't any need for organs, head priest said. Falling from such a height, the innards would of course be damaged. Just stuff some mushed flesh in the belly of empty shells and pour in some bloody fluids would have been fine. Among my 3 friends, there was one who was an expert in creating such crafty things, and something like empty-shelled fakes was his creation from the start. He had only taught the skill to us. And the method in creating empty-shelled fakes wasn't as widespread then, so since they were all dead, who do you think could make such realistic empty-shelled fakes other than me? Xie Lian hung his head, his pupils shrunken. That family of 3 who fell to their deaths before the gates of the royal capital of Xianle was the direct catalyst of war. And those lives weren't real at all, they were a trap. Then why didn't you tell me at the time? Xie Lian questioned. I didn't dare to at all, head priest said. If it really was him and I told you, then with your personality back then, wouldn't you have charged right up for vengeance? That wouldn't have saved you or Xianle at all, and would only hasten your annihilation. Besides, even without those 3 empty shells, there would sooner or later be some other incidents that'd spark war. Just like that missing dog inside the capital. Later, you were defeated. Xianle was also defeated. I really couldn't hold back any longer. Thus, I first sent away everyone at the Holy Royal Pavilion, then requested for his grace inside the Great Martial Temple. Then, I unmasked him directly. This was what Jun Wu had mentioned their meeting of 800 years ago. Head priest said. I questioned him on a lot of things, but he wouldn't admit nor deny anything. Finally, I asked him, Your Highness, just what exactly do you want? Single quote, quote dot. He finally answered. He said, he wants you to become his perfect heir. If there was anyone in the world who could understand him completely, it was you. Once you succeed, then you would never betray him. I understood his intention. In the heat of argument, we started fighting with our fists. I can't fight at all, and if I should, then I would die, without a doubt. He could kill me without moving a single finger. But right then, his expression suddenly changed and he covered his face. I was startled, and only then did I notice that upon his face those three faces surfaced again. Turns out they didn't vanish at all, and he had been suppressing them with his spiritual powers. And now, for some reason, perhaps it was because of his high emotions or because of me, they had come out again. And just like that, my three friends came out to stir up a riot, causing him agonizing headaches, his expression terrifying, and I once again used that chance to run away. I started drifting in the mortal realm once again, and this time I had to hide all over the place too. I wondered, just how were things at the Wu-Yang kingdom of back then? Thus, I returned to look. What I hadn't imagined was this time when I returned, I made great discoveries. For some reason, the land that belonged to the past Wu-Yang kingdom was sealed completely, isolated from the outside world. I walked for a long time in that land, and ran into my three friends again. Were they those three mountain spirits, old age, sickness, and death? Xie Lian asked. Correct, head priest replied. The kiln devoured their bodies, and the ashes of their bones that were burnt to nothingness mixed with the ashes of the volcano, and was then blown out. Along with time, more and more residues layered, and after 1,000 years, they transformed into three large mountains in the end, with parts of their souls resting within. Finding ways to communicate with them who had become mountain spirits took me a long time, but after I succeed, I learned many things. Turns out, the previous dynasty of heavenly officials didn't fade away naturally. Instead, they were killed slowly, one, by him. He slaughtered the entire heavenly court, leaving no one behind. And after washing the heaven realm with blood, he returned to the mortal realm once again, and patiently waited for a time, changed to a new name, forged a new identity, became mortal man, then ascended. All of the heavenly officials of the entire heaven realm were dead. No one knew who exactly he was, and no one knew who he looked like before. The widespread backstory of the martial heavenly emperor in the mortal realm, his background, his literary references, his interesting hearsays, appearance, character. It's all fake. They're all intricate lies he fabricated. This heavenly capital is the new heaven realm he single-handedly created that's completely under his control. As for the corpses and ashes of the heavenly officials of the previous dynasty, they're all mixed in the soil of the foundation of this heavenly capital, trampled and stepped on by him each and every day. Right now, perhaps there's also someone beneath your feet. Head priest continued. The him now is the #1 martial god of the heaven realm, looking glorious and scintillating on the surface. However, in his heart, an infinite darkness is suppressed deep within. Resentment, pain, anger, hatred. Those things need release. Only then could he maintain balance within himself and continue to be the #1 martial god who ruled all three realms without murdering everything. The once Wu-Yang kingdom had been turned into hell, and the kiln was fed countless number of the living and three former heavenly officials, so it already recognized him as the master. Thus, he would regularly release those dark emotions within the kiln, using the millions of deceased souls of Wu-Yang as kindle to start the flames of karma, and forged many malicious things. The method in forging those malicious things is different than creating it supreme, right? Xie Lian asked. Indeed, head priest replied. Supremes were something that came later, since he changed the reffing method. What do you mean by that? Xie Lian asked. The quality and quantity. Head priest said. He gave watching another look. You both must know already that a supreme is only born once every 100 years, several hundred years even, so they are extremely rare, and the difficulty in their creation is also immense. And the past life of the supreme is an independent existence. The kiln only provided an environment to increase the process of their explosive birth. Those who can become supremes anywhere, and would become supremes sooner or later. In fact, the word supreme was extracted from the meaning of peerless and top. It doesn't have much connection with whether if one was trained inside the kiln. Still, to be able to endure the quenching of the kiln would certainly make one such an entity, since there aren't that many who could suffer through in the first place. Up until now, aren't there only 3? Xie Lian glanced at Hua Cheng, who was right next to him, and it just so happened Hua Cheng was also looking at him. Although he didn't know why Xie Lian looked over, he still smiled. Head priest continued. However, the earlier productions of the kiln weren't like this. In the early days, there'd be a session once every few years, and each time the results would be different, as batches and batches poured out. Perhaps this had something to do with his unstable emotions. Everything produced were monsters forged by his hatred and resentment, and there are probably a few familiar names among them. For example, the Reverend of Empty Words. The Reverend of Empty Words is also something born of the kiln. Xie Lian exclaimed. Correct, head priest replied. Those creatures, some have their own consciousness and broke away from him. Some don't, and they could be considered as his clones. The Reverend of Empty Words had its own consciousness, and after it left, it had even divided itself into many smaller clones. My 3 friends guarded within the borders of the Wuyang Kingdom to prevent those things from leaving the ward. While I spent my years in the outside world searching for those creatures, trying to fix the situation. Xie Lian suddenly recalled the strange attitude head priest had when he saw Shi Qingshan. Master, Lord Wind Master, the skilled fortune-telling master who told Shi Qingshan's fortune back then, the one who told his family not to host feasts, was that you? Duh, head priest said. Other than your master, me, which other skilled fortune-telling master could be this accurate? Which fortune-telling master would be so free that a bowl of porridge could pay for a session? That Reverend of Empty Words had wanted to try and devour the young Shi Wudu at first, head priest said. But Shi Wudu, that little bastard, was too vicious, difficult to deal with even at such a young age. Nothing could get to him. And he was afraid of nothing. His fate's so tyrannical it couldn't be swallowed. And if it tried to bite forcibly, it might just crack all of its teeth in a bloody mess, so it could only turn to his common little brother with a fate of wealth. Although it still didn't manage to bite, but it caused so much grief the 2 brothers couldn't live in peace, plus it bit one who originally had the fate to ascend, so it wasn't aggrieved. That I didn't kill that thing dead really gets to me. It's already been killed dead, Hua Cheng said. Devoured by Hizan, right? Head priest said. I've heard. I was going to watch over the Shi brothers until everything blew over, but at the time the kiln was about to open its gates, so I couldn't follow them closely before I had to return to the kiln. And by the time I came back, things were already a mess. Shi Wudu turned to wickedness and caused a huge havoc, completely out of hand. It gave me such a headache, even if I wanted to care I couldn't at that point. It really did turn into something that couldn't be mended even if he wanted to. Head priest added. But truth to be told, the Reverend of Empty Words wasn't even considered anything powerful among those monsters. It just likes to go out to stir up trouble. Strictly speaking, it could only be considered a defective product, not even rankable. There were more, such as, Xie Lian said quietly, such as the soul of the dead who died in battle at Yin Bridge. Head priest sucked in a breath. It's him. Otherwise, why did you think I'd say everything started because of your one phrase? That ghost at the bridge was a black clone he forged out of the kiln, and every so many years it had to come out to haunt and kill to vent its hatred. But you just had to defeat that monster. He could sense that ghost at the bridge was killed by someone, so he descended immediately to see, and he saw you. And you just had to say that phrase to his face, body and abyss. Heart and paradise. This was a mad jab at him, a fatal blow. This was the turning point of everything. End chapter.